Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk. Let's get straight to the docket. First, the Ahmaud Arbery case. The 3 suspects have officially been indicted. Second, Ron Jeremy says he didn't do it. Third, an arson suspect in the Rayshad Brooks case has been arrested. Fourth, a medical doctor here in Colorado needs a better bedside manner. Fifth, an LA City councilman has been arrested for corruption. Sixth, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn's case has been dismissed, or has it? And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk, and thanks for watching. First, if you haven't done so already, we'd ask that you hit that little subscribe button, hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we put up new content or go live. Last night, we did go live, as we try to do every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. If you didn't catch it, you can hopefully hit the link below and watch it. First on the docket, the Ahmaud Arbery case. The 3 suspects in this case have officially been indicted. That's Travis McMichael, the alleged shooter, Gregory McMichael, the man who helped drive, and then William Roddy Bryant, who allegedly trapped Mr. Ahmaud Arbery with his car, repeatedly, ultimately resulting in his death by multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. Each defendant is charged with 1 count of malice murder, 4 counts felony murder, 2 counts aggravated assault, 1 count false imprisonment, and 1 count criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. All 3 of the defendants remain in custody. A preliminary hearing has already been held. At that hearing, the court found that probable cause did exist for the case to be bound over. Now the case will be set for an arraignment. It's anticipated that all 3 men will enter pleas of not guilty. And for those of you who do not recall, the McMichaels believed and claimed that they thought that Arbery matched the description of a burglary suspect, and ultimately Travis McMichael fired the fatal shots on February 23rd of this year during a struggle with Ahmaud. This came after all 3 men chased down Mr. Arbery. The police alleged that no one, including the suspects, had any right to stop or confine Arbery, and Brian was working with Brian and McMichaels by repeatedly using his vehicle to trap Arbery when he was trying to get away. Now, we've seen this video many times. Clearly, Mr. Arbery is going back and forth to get away from the McMichaels and Mr. Brian. And in this particular case, I took a lot of heat. Everyone says, oh, he was a criminal, he was running. Nope. No evidence that he stole anything. And also I took a lot of heat when I said the stand your ground wasn't going to work because, well, Travis McMichaels was the initial aggressor by getting out of the car and pulling a gun on him. Ultimately, this will be a decision for the jury to decide, but legally, none of the defenses that these individuals were raising was going to be a legally valid one, which would result in no charges being brought. We will continue to follow this case. Obviously, this is just a series of cases, and this is why I get flack. I call it the way I see it. I think the McMichaels were completely wrong. They never should have got out of that vehicle. They should have simply called the police. Then we have the case of Rayshad Brooks, where looking at that video, some people get upset when I said that this is a situation that clearly looks like it's awful but lawful. Looks like the police may be justified. We'll see what the Georgia Bureau of Investigation case comes down. And then the third case out there has been the George Floyd case, where the officers are appropriately charged. So no matter what I say, someone's going to be upset by whatever I say, but we try to call it based upon the facts and the law that's presented. Next on the docket, Ron Jeremy, which is his stage name, or Ron Jeremy Hyatt, which is his legal name, which will actually appear as in court. Yes, that's right. The adult film star has been charged with forcibly sexually assaulting 3 women and sexually assaulting a 4th in an incident ranging between 2014 and 2019. The counts include 3 counts of forcible rape and forcible penetration by a foreign object and 1 count each of forcible oral copulation and sexual battery. It's alleged in May of 2014, Hyatt, Ron Jeremy, who's 67, allegedly forcibly raped a 25-year-old woman in a West Hollywood home. In 2017, Hyatt, Ron Jeremy once again, allegedly sexually assaulted 2 women, 33 and 46, on different occasions at a West Hollywood bar. At the same bar, he allegedly forcibly raped a 30-year-old woman in 2019. Hyatt could spend the rest of his days in prison, as it carries a maximum sentence of 90 years to life. And since Ron Jeremy Hyatt is 67 years of age, needless to say, if he were to receive any penalty in prison, he would more than likely not be coming out of there a free man. It's alleged that there was another incident going back to 2016, but the district attorneys felt that there was insufficient evidence in which to bring that charge forward. Apparently, Jeremy likes to make lots of appearances, apparently somewhere he gets paid, and his shtick is to basically grope the women, and apparently it's worked for him over the years, and no one said anything. Well, this is a new age and era. One would probably think Ron Jeremy would want to keep his hands to himself. Next on the docket, the woman wanted for setting fire to the Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks was killed has been caught. The woman, Natalie White, and obviously like anyone we talk about here on this show, gets and receives a presumption of innocence unless and until they are convicted or plead guilty in a court of law. We've said this before, peaceful protest good, destruction of other people's property bad. It's that simple. You don't get to torch somebody's property because you're upset about something that somebody else did. I don't understand that logic. I never will. It makes no sense. And hopefully this woman, if she's in fact convicted, Miss Natalie White, will appreciate the fact that the people that worked at this Wendy's no longer have jobs, and that the owners, and I don't know if it's a franchise or whether it's corporate owned, but either the way, somebody's going to pay to rebuild it, and I doubt Miss White will never have enough money to ever pay back restitution. So it would appear that she should probably just go to prison. That's what should happen if you can't pay the restitution back. It's that simple. Next on the docket, a Colorado doctor needs to work on his bedside manner. Oops, he can't do that. Why? He had to surrender his medical license. And that doctor is Mark Randall Ryan, who was working under contract as an anesthesiologist who got into an argument with a nurse about turning off vital sign machines inside patients' recovery rooms. Ryan said he turned the machines off because the constant beeping sounds creates significant dangerous alarm fatigue. Never heard of it? Perhaps it's a thing. The victim in this case, a nurse, Beth Ducci, stated that the good doctor grabbed her around the neck and started choking her. Another witness said that Ryan choked Ducci violently and that her feet were dancing. The victim was in shock, according to witnesses, and thought Ryan was going to actually kill her. He entered a plea to second-degree assault, strangulation, and the court at his sentencing ordered him to immediately serve a 30-day jail sentence as a condition of his probation. The good doctor has already surrendered his medical license last year, shortly after the incident, and he won't be practicing medicine anytime soon. Well, that last story about the good doctor would make anyone a little nervous. You never know who you're going to come in contact with. But if you know you're going to come in contact with somebody, let's say, for example, you have a new love interest or something, maybe going to meet somebody on a date, wouldn't you like to run a background check? Of course you would. And guess what? If you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, type in a name, it'll take you to this site, and the verified site will actually do a background check, produce a report that includes social media, phone numbers, emails, criminal history, bankruptcies, court records, all the things you want to know about anyone before you get involved with them. Now remember, you can get unlimited searches with this subscription. There's a no-risk trial. You can cancel at any time. You can search anonymously, so no one's ever going to know you did it. And there's no way that you could search all of the public records that this background subscription searches in the time that it is produced. It is worth the money. We have personally used it here at the law firm. It has saved me a lot of time, clients a lot of money. You will be satisfied. Go to crimetalksearch.com and sign up for your subscription. Well, it finally happened. 18 months after federal authorities raided the longtime Los Angeles City Councilman Jose Huizar's home, he has been arrested and indicted on criminal racketeering charges. This is not good for Mr. Huizar. He is 51 years old, and he is a city councilman in Boyle Heights. And that's where a lot of the construction has been taking place in the LA County area. Basically, it's the downtown area. And as a result of that, he has become very popular and very powerful, at least until his house was raided, where he was removed from the committees. And of course, he refused to resign. But it is alleged that he was accepting, through various associates, cash for making things happen on real estate projects or slowing things down for people on real estate projects. And as noted, he wasn't going to resign and actually wanted his wife to run for his seat. So apparently they could continue the little criminal enterprise that he had going. When his house was searched last year, authorities found $129,000 in cash stashed in a closet. A lot of cash one can accumulate as a public servant. It's also alleged that a real estate developer gave Huizar $500,000 in cash in paper bags to help resolve labor disputes. The political fundraiser who served as the middleman and helped facilitate that money transfer reached a plea agreement with prosecutors earlier this year. Additionally, Huizar was provided a dozen trips to casinos in the U.S. and abroad, where he was given some $250,000 of gambling chips. A Chinese developer put up $600,000 in collateral so that Huizar could get a bank loan to pay off a woman who had accused him of sexual harassment. When Huizar stopped making payments on the loan, the collateral was used to pay off the remainder of the loan. The prosecutors made a statement saying that, unfortunately, LA's grand exterior has concealed a cancer, a disease of elected officials and staff members breaking a series of laws in order to line their own pockets, maintain power, and keep open a spigot of illegal bribes and other benefits. That statement about staffers lining their pockets was illustrated by a former aide of Huizar, George Esparza, who agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy charge in connection with the bribery scheme that Huizar had developed. Additionally, there's another real estate developing consultant who's also agreed to plead guilty and to testify against hopefully soon-to-be ex-Councilman Huizar. Obviously, Councilman Huizar is given the presumption of innocence. However, as a public official, as we've talked about before, he should be held to a higher standard, and he could receive up to 20 years if he is found guilty of racketeering. Now, lots of people will say he's just doing what politicians do, using his influence to help things happen. I agree. But when you get paid under the table, that's called bribery, and that's illegal. And public officials who supposedly get into it for the public good know that they're not going to make a lot of money when they're in public service. And so when they start getting paid large sums of money and start living extravagantly, it should be an invitation for any politician, regardless of political party, regardless of any location, for them to be investigated as to how they are developing their wealth. Next on the docket, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. His case is finally going to be over. Or maybe. As you may recall, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was an original appointee to the National Security Council for President Trump. He didn't last very long because this was the whole thing that started the Russia investigation, where James Comey has bragged that he sent people over to talk to Michael Flynn, knowing that they were violating certain protocols. They got Mr. Flynn to talk. They have in their notes that they don't believe that he actually committed any crime whatsoever, but they charged him hoping that he would basically provide information about something and be able to lead to a greater investigation. That never came to fruition because he wasn't there long enough, and it turned out he wasn't lying. But the problem was Mr. Flynn pled guilty because he didn't want the process to go on any further. The government was going to recommend probation, and there was also some benefit that his son wasn't going to be prosecuted for probably riding his dad's coattails and making some money as a lobbyist. Well, Flynn suddenly realized when documents were turned over that certain documents had not been turned over. And what have we talked about before here, ladies and gentlemen? That's right. The government has an obligation to turn over exculpatory evidence, all of it. They don't get to decide what papers they want to turn over, what papers they don't want to turn over. They all get it. All of it gets turned over to the defense. And when they withhold it, guess what? That's called prosecutorial misconduct. The Attorney General's office ultimately realized this was going to be bad. This was going to make us look really bad because Michael Flynn was withdrawing or wanting to withdraw his guilty plea so that he could have a hearing on the case. The government said, we're going to file a motion to dismiss. Unfortunately for Mr. Flynn, the judge hearing the case, Judge Emmett Sullivan, said, not so fast. I'm not sure that I want this case dismissed. I'm going to have a former federal judge and prosecutor look into this and basically advise me. And what Judge Sullivan was basically saying is, why shouldn't I charge the good general with perjury? Because in federal court, when one pleads guilty, they're put under oath and they swear to tell the truth, and that any false statements could in fact be used against them in a prosecution for perjury. Flynn's attorneys ultimately said, hey, Judge, you can't do that. And they appealed to the D.C. Circuit. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled and said, issued a mandate that the case be dismissed. They said, Judge Sullivan, you don't have any authority to push a prosecution forward. You have no authority to tell the prosecutors to file charges of perjury against the good Mr. Flynn. That's not your job as a judge. That would be a job of the executive branch, the prosecutor. So butt out, Judge. We'll see if the Judge Sullivan, through his attorney, so to speak, will ask for what they refer to as an en banc hearing, which is basically the entire D.C. Circuit could decide the case. And of course, if they reverse that decision, then it would go up ultimately to the United States Supreme Court if certiorari was granted. We'll see if Judge Sullivan follows the orders of the D.C. Circuit or whether they appeal. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Our dumb criminal contestant of the day is Becky Bartlett and her ex-boyfriend, Robert Ybarra. So apparently Becky and Robert were having a little dispute, although not a couple anymore, they still live together. Apparently, Mr. Robert Ybarra decided it'd be a good idea to perhaps go away, relax, cool down, remove themselves from the situation. Good advice, right? That's what they teach in all those domestic violence classes. I get that. However, Becky Bartlett probably said, oh, if you leave, that's fine. And if any guy knows everything, when a woman says everything's fine, it's not fine. And when they say to go, don't go. Well, that's what happened. Mr. Ybarra, though, returned back at the house, started making himself a pizza in the oven, fell asleep on the couch before it got done. Becky Bartlett came over there and threw it on Mr. Ybarra. Well, the police ultimately arrive at the request of Mr. Ybarra. The police ultimately arrest Becky Bartlett for basically causing a burn to Robert Ybarra, and she gets arrested. Now, Robert Ybarra, what does he do? He thinks he's good to go. Well, apparently he has a warrant out of the state of Colorado for distribution of marijuana. That's right. Mr. Ybarra is in custody awaiting extradition back to Colorado on a $50,000 bond. So There's lots of lessons to be learned from our dumb criminal contestant of the day. If you're fighting with a woman, do not leave when they say, go ahead and leave. And if they say everything's fine, it's not fine, you better sit there and try to resolve it. Now, Ms. Bartlett, don't throw food on people. It could burn them. You could go to jail. And Mr. Ybarra, if you are going to call the police, you should probably make sure that you have no wants or warrants in other jurisdictions, which is going to result in your arrest. I hope it was worth it, Mr. Ybarra. That's all we have today. Thank you for watching. And as always, if you would like to receive or purchase your own mug, a Crime Talk mug, without becoming a dumb criminal contestant of the day, you simply have to go to the link below. It'll take you right to Teespring, and you can order all your Crime Talk merchandise. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on Crime Talk.